All right, guys, what the hell is going on with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson? Look. First off, he was a complete unknown. I got $100 to anybody who knew this guy existed before he became Speaker of the House. But it's like the more I this they took what like 2 or 3 weeks to settle on the guy, and the more you find out about him, the more fucking weird he gets. Like his first thing, he comes out and he says he says what a lot of Republicans hint at, but don't just say in so many straightforward terms. Where he's like, "Hey, well, what's your philosophy for governance?" And he says, "Open up a copy of the Bible. That's my philosophy for governance." And okay, that's pretty weird. And then he said a few statements that I wanted to throw out there, talking about how incredibly strange he was. But he mentioned in an editorial he wrote in a Louisiana newspaper that he thought homosexuality was inherently unnatural and dangerous lifestyle that would lead to legalized pedophilia and possibly destroy the entire democratic system. So I'm used to them saying that, going from the step of, you're sleeping with a man one day and your penis is in a box turtle the next. Like that one I'm used to. But the whole destroy the democratic system, I don't know where that came from. That seemed kind of odd. And he also blames mass shootings. This one's a pretty common Republican one, talking about abortion and the destruction of the nuclear family. When we tell people that they evolved from animals, that they're going to, of course, shoot people. That was more in the Republican lane. But he also sponsored a bill that would have he voted against the bill that would have created a legal right for anyone to obtain all food and drugs approved by the FDA, including contraceptives. And that's the issue he had against. Like, the man is against contraception. And he also co-sponsored the Life at Conception Act that would grant legal personhood to every fertilized egg in the United States. This includes the ones stored in hospitals or medical facilities for in vitro fertilization, and legal personhood, just like you. And also, and I can't let this one go, about, you guys hear about his adoption to the 14-year-old black child when he was 25? And it was he became his legal guardian, him and his wife, at 25 years old. And it's a really, this one's a strange one. I'm surprised it's a strange one, but the guys had a lot of crime in his past, and he doesn't have anything bad to say about them. But I mean, it's a pretty big red flag for me on a field full of them. But I gotta know, EK, what do you think about this guy?
Like, I mean, I knew absolutely nothing about this dude. He most likely got elected Speaker of the House because nobody knew anything about him, including including the people that, were caucusing with him. And I I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I mean, he's a lunatic. All right, he's a lunatic. Everything that he says is just absolutely ridiculous. And my main concern with the guy is what happens when it's time to fund the government again. And because we still are looking at having to do some bipartisan vote, because they're not going to have the votes to get the government, or to stop the government from shutting down in what is it, 20 something days now or something like that. I can't even remember. I forget. McCarthy gave us 45 days or something like that, before he got voted out. And now we've got this dude who is wildly ridiculous. And I'm just we're gonna be back in the same place that we were before, with somebody that's even more of a hardline lunatic. So yeah,
Yeah.
regardless of his wackiness, I'm dude, just what happens, a month from now, when it's time for those votes to go through and nobody's got the votes.
Well, we saved bipartisan unity for censuring Rashida Tlaib. That's the important stuff we got to get through. John, what's your thoughts?
The gays are going to destroy the democratic process. That doesn't need censoring.
That's insane. It's so wild, man. It's so wild.
It's almost like, I've said this before, but ever since Trump, and I'm sure that this kind of existed before Trump, but it really, really started with Trump. reality has just become satire. Like if you would have told me like this guy, you would have listed everything you just said, TJ, and you're like, that's going to be the Republican Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the
and
House.
You put that in a movie, I'd be like, oh, come on, you're being a little unfair to the Republicans.
Yeah.
But they aren't that crazy. But here we are, and I think it's. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this might be a take I regret, but I think it's a good thing to put the crazy out there as much as possible. Like, I think that as long as the government shutdown isn't too terrible, which I think that's one of the things where, like, we'll get through it. We always do. It's the dumbest thing we do in America, but like, screw it. We always get through it because no one is willing to play chicken like that. Like, as long as that goes fine, like, there's only so much damage he can do until we get a new Congress, and most of the damage is going to be to the perception of his party. So, like, I don't mind having a wackadoo, leading the Republican Party here. But I could come to regret that. You don't want to, arm the terrorists because that never goes well. But like, I don't know. I think they're all.
It's a big risk. It's a big risk.
But like, how much of a risk? Like, you're going to have a wackadoo anyway. Like, he doesn't have the power to actually implement a theocratic state. So like, if Republicans had everything, I'd be worried, but they don't, and they probably won't in 2024 either. Corey, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that this is just a reflection of what the Republican Party has come. I mean, again,
yes,
none of us heard of this guy, and you could literally just take a fucking dart and throw it at a bunch of Republican names and land on it, and they would have landed on this guy, and nobody would have known who he was. He would have, he wins, he becomes Speaker of the House, and then you do a little digging, and it's like, he's fucking insane. And I feel like that would happen with anyone in the Republican Party, or like the vast majority at this point, when you just randomly pick them like that. One of the weirdest things that I heard about him, I mean, TJ, you pointed out a lot of weird things about him. I mean, have we heard about this weird shit he does with his son? Where basically him and his son monitor each other's porn usage. They use it's a software called Covenant Eyes, where they can see each other's computers and they can make sure that the other one isn't engaging in the watching of nefarious sites. Let's just say that. And that is just the weirdest shit. And I think his son is like what, 17 or 18? He's like not super old. Yeah. And that is like the weirdest shit I've ever heard of, because it's like, I mean, even and personally speaking, this may be like a weird hot take. I personally think that pornography is quite harmful for society. But now that doesn't mean I believe we should be banning it or we should regulate it because we have First Amendment, and I'm totally against censorship. But I personally do see that there's, I think it's harmful for society. That being said, like, if you need your son to be able to see what's on your computer just to stop you from watching certain things, you have a problem. Like that, it makes me think, like, my wife works in mental health counseling for people who have substance abuse problems. And, all the people she's working with, they're in recovery. They've all, had, different, interactions with all of these really harmful substances. And they have, what do you call them when you're in AA? Sponsors. You have a sponsor who helps you stay off of drugs. If you have to have your 17-year-old son be your sponsor to help you stay off porn sites, then what you're basically telling me is that at one point in time, you had a serious porn addiction. Like, you had a serious problem with this, because you could just like not go on the sites. Like, you're a sitting member of Congress. What time do you have to be going on Pornhub in the first place? Like, I mean, I guess you have some time to do it, but you could just like not do it. You could just like not engage in that. Like, if you have to have your son be able to say, "Daddy, I saw what you were doing last night," if you have to have that just to not be able to do it, then that's admitting to me that you have a serious problem. I mean, like, beyond all of our our opinions about pornography in general, like, that's weird shit to even involve your family on it on that level, and to have a software. That's so weird. And the weird thing about it is, the software, I looked up this software, it doesn't block porn. It simply alerts your sponsor when you're on the site. So it's like you have access still, but you have to really show that willpower, because if you get on there, your son is gonna see that shit. And like, that's like, what? It like blows my mind. And he fully admitted to this in an interview last year, before he was even like in the public eye. I'm literally at a loss for words. Like I can't understand why that's a thing.
It's like that Nathan For You bit where like he gets in an audience full of children, and like the machine will pants him and shows him to the children. Like it's exactly like that.
It's exactly like that. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Oh
my gosh!
I didn't know that it didn't block porn. That makes it like
funnier. It's an add-on. You can get a special add-on to block it, but most of them don't have the add-on because they want to increase willpower.
That's a surprise, right?
The add-on costs money. Is a monthly subscription that to get the add-on. So, you
know. and Corey, no can do on that. No can do. Like Mike, you can't expect Mike Johnson to work through like his addiction or speak to a counselor, or maybe, seek spiritual guidance. No, he's got to like buy an app called Covenant Eyes, to stop using like an app that sounds like a horror novel, and then share this. and what I was wondering is like, okay, how long has he been doing this? Because this app hasn't, I assume, not been around forever. And it's like, was he telling his kids about his porn problems when they were like 10 or 11 years old? Like, now daddy has a problem here. And so we gotta look this over. And that is, God, that's so weird. I didn't know the name of the app, and I didn't know that it didn't block the porn automatically. But yeah, that's wild. That makes, also, he doesn't have a bank account. Did you guys see that? He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't have a bank account. He gets like his congressional pay is like $200 and something thousand a year, and members of Congress are okay. It's unclear if he has a bank account. I'll put it that way. That they're required to show their records for any bank account that I think is over $5,000, and he has not done it. So like, okay, where is this money going? Like, what? And what's also weird is that he has a mortgage. It's like, how'd you get a mortgage? Maybe have I don't know. It's turtles all the way down with this guy. Like, it's just weird after weird after weird, and it will never run out. It's amazing to me.
I will say, like, okay, I went to Catholic school, from third grade all the way and through like my freshman year of high school. My seventh grade science teacher was a nun. She was a good science teacher as well. The principal of my school was also a nun. Like there were a few teachers that were nuns, if I recall correctly. We didn't have that type of crazy. Like somehow people just embraced a whole new level of crazy, like the giving personhood to fertilize eggs. What about, in order for, a fertilized egg to become a child, it also, like, you can have a fertilized egg that does not actually become a child because it has to stick to the uterine wall. Like, are we going to give personhood to the fertilized eggs that end up in the toilet or the garbage can somewhere that comes out, when a woman has a person has a monthly cycle? That's ridiculous. Like, how are we embracing all of these weird people that have these weird? How do we get to these people with these extreme, crazy, weird views of everything, just completely, like, not even renouncing science? It's like regular ass history, like, okay, well, like, homosexuals will be the death of democracy. Like, what about the Roman Empire, dog? Come on. Like, the things you model the government after, that you can't think about, or that you can't stop thinking about, according to social media, that there was some stuff going on.
They were gay
in Rome,
Pretty much.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that because he did talk about that too. He said that Rome fell because of all the queers. That's what he's like, Roman society started accepting, homosexuality, and the empire fell, which is an incredibly funny thing to say because Roman society always accepted homosexuality. Like the Roman Republic did, the Roman Empire did, hundreds of years, like a millennium and a half, the Romans were very cool with it. They had their own rules, but like, I try to explain to people too, like, it's really funny, like watching right-wingers talk about this platonic idea of masculinity that dates back, to ages. And it's like, listen, if you would have went to a Roman citizen in, AD 150 and talked about homosexuality, heterosexuality, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, they didn't think that way. Like, they didn't categorize. It would be like someone coming to you and say, I only sleep with redheads. You're like, wait, what? Like, what? That's an orientation? What are you talking? It would be that weird to them. And if anything, the Romans would have become less cool with homosexuality, with Christianity being the official religion of Rome, around what, AD 300 or so, about 150 years before the empire fell. So if anything, it was being less cool with the gays that led to the empire falling. It's so funny you mentioned that, EK, because I had forgotten about it, like all the weird shit he said.
I mean, how powerful do these conservative Christian extremists think gay sex is, that it's going to lead to the end of democracy? Like that, to me, you're just telling on yourself. You're telling me that you have some sort of weird thing going on with you about your relationship with this, and there's some type of repression going on there. Because otherwise, why why be so concerned with what someone else wants to do in their private lives? Like, I've never understood that with conservatives, particularly ones like Mike Johnson. Like, why do you care so much if someone else, like, if you're a straight male, and this might sound a little weird, but if you're a straight male and there's other men dating men, it's like, okay, more women for me. Like, I don't understand why would I have a problem with that? Like, it's like, cool, let's do that, please. Like, that's like, I don't understand it. But one thing I do want to say real quick is that John said earlier about the fact that guys like this, there's nothing that they can really do, as far as like how harmful they can get. And you're right, John, only because the Republicans don't have total control of Congress. So in that particular, scenario, you're right. However, the scary thing about Johnson is that he has signaled some willingness to at least try to look into repealing, ironically speaking, it's called the Johnson Amendment. Now, this goes back to like the 1950s, and it's basically an amendment that bans tax-exempt organizations, including churches, from participating in political campaigns, particularly when they're 501c3s. I used to work for a 501c3. And in fact, I used to do media for a 501c3. And there were certain ways we couldn't even talk about certain politicians because we could not show bias towards one party or the other. Now, him, like, and again, he wouldn't be able to do this by himself, but a willingness to look into that, to push that. And if, like, God forbid, Republicans take both houses in 2024, if that's something that's on his agenda to repeal the Johnson Amendment, which has been around for over 60 years in this country, you could start seeing churches having a much greater influence on our elections, on campaigns, and that would be horrific. And that is the type of a theocratic state that people like Mike Johnson are slowly trying to push. They're basically trying to infuse their religion into our politics, which is, unconstitutional, and they don't care. In fact, Mike Johnson, when asked about it, he said, well, the Constitution was always set up to protect the churches from the state, not the other way around. And that's complete bullshit. It was both. Like, when you read the First Amendment, it says the establishment of a religion, like through law, is not allowed. Like, you can't have a national religion. I don't know how many times you have to read that to see that they didn't want any religion controlling the state, or vice versa. They didn't want to outlaw religion. And you just can't, there seems to be this mental block there that certain conservatives have with that. You always hear this phrase like, oh, it was about freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. No, it was both. It was trying to instill both. I mean, if you look at the reason why people started this country in the first place, they were escaping religious persecution in England. And so it's crazy how wildly unconstitutional that they've gotten with this, the whole separation of church and state. But I think that's the danger with a guy like Johnson is if given power for a certain amount of time, he could lead to flipping the script on amendments like that have protected us in some way and tried to instill that separation of church and state. So that's what I worry about. But like John said, it's not something that you would have to worry about right now, but it could be something that we have to worry about in the future if this guy were to remain Speaker of the House for any measurable amount of time.
Yeah, Corey, and let me tell you, if the Republicans, win the trifecta in 2024, I will eat my fucking hat. It's not going to happen. And looking at the election results from Tuesday, it is definitely not going to happen for a variety of reasons that we will be talking about tomorrow in tomorrow's episodes of this show. So if you want to hear us talk more about that, hit subscribe, hit that bell icon, and you'll know as soon as that video comes up. And we'll continue that discussion then.